Good morning, everybody. In first, we got Shane Lalone, followed by Stephen Parsons, Ben Toombs, Jack Pines Blacksmithing, Bortegov, Transcendental Artist Studios, John Brunell. How y'all doing? What is up? You think I need to add audio to the fish? I like the bubbles. How y'all doing today? Happy Sunday, happy weekend, and man, for what a storm we had last night, it's a beautiful day outside. Hey Robert. So today it is me and Alex. Adam is ignoring us. No, he's at work. Um, so what is up? We'll go with the how was your weeks? You look like you're busy over there.
Nah, yeah, same old, I guess. Had I don't know, this is my short week because I'm obviously at home. Um, so didn't get that much work in. I don't know, almost 40 hours. Enough to pay the bills. Um, yeah, came home and apparently I just realized this morning I left my freaking glasses at the therapist office. That sucks.
Yeah.
Um, and then I did a show, Thursday night, something like that. That
Yeah, how'd that go?
Yeah,
I mean, I
man, it was
was
a lot of
part of that.
I enjoyed it. Just sat around here telling stories, unfiltered, and um, had a couple of people pop in, completely surprised to see somebody that wasn't Yamez,
Right?
and yeah, I think it went all right. I learned a lot. The next time I do it, it'll be a lot smoother for sure. And also the next time I do it, it'll be via Starlink, so I will have like basically no latency. Um, I'm just running here. I've got what Frontier Fiber, something like that. Here in Bront, and at work we got the Starlink, so it's lightning
Mm-hmm.
fast. Um, but I know I learned a few things about the processes and how to kind of streamline everything. As far as moving the screens around and transitioning from one thing to another. And and obviously when you only do it once a year or something like that, you don't remember how to do all that. See,
Right.
but doing it on a little bit more of a regular basis, it'll get easier.
Yeah,
Um,
you'll get to know the production side, what I deal with a little bit more. Um, so yeah, I would like to touch on all that a little bit too as well. Um,
right, and for anybody that was in there and like was wondering what happened at the end, if you didn't see my post on Instagram or Facebook, yeah, I was sitting here talking to everybody, and it was taking so long for people to respond. I'm like, man, what is going on here? So I looked at my phone, and I looked at where I was talking. I turned my phone on, went to YouTube, opened up the stream, and the stream was 10 minutes behind what I was saying, and I was like, whoa, that is a long time. And I was like, and then I had this whole conversation, and I was like, all right, you guys, I'm gonna go ahead and check out. And I will catch you guys on Sunday and all of that stuff. And then I hit the end stream button, and then I noticed the chat went, "Wait, is that it? Is that everything?" And I was like, "Wait, what just happened?" And I went back to my YouTube, and it stopped the stream right where it was at in the stream, not when I ended it. So it cut off the entire last 10 minutes because, and I don't know why it had built up that much delay over the 2 hours that I was live, but and I also didn't realize hitting the end stream button or whatever would just cut all that off. I thought the buffer was on YouTube side, but it was on my side. So yeah, I lost the
yeah,
whole last minutes of the show, and I learned something. So the next time I do it, I'll bring up when I go to end the stream. I'll end the video part, and then I'll hit the end stream. I'll pull up the thing, and if there's a latency like that again, I'll wait until the stream stops on when I'm watching it to hit the end stream button and all that. So
right. Might be an easy workaround for that. I think my mic is too close. Might be an easy workaround for that. But yeah, definitely something to play with. And what I wanted to touch on is and to let people here know that that is going to be kind of a new format for the channel for that. Not new format. I mean, it's been our format, but we're going to be adding random shows. Alexis doing her show, and potentially Adam. I want Adam to do a life in Australia show. Where you go around and be like, all right, this is how we survived this. This is how we survived that. Like, yes, everything's trying to kill us, but no, not everything can. You know, uh, a day in the life of an Australian kind of, or whatever he wants to do, and do that. We do plan on getting together and doing a recorded and edited video because something we're noticing with the algorithms and our the channel. Yes, we have almost 3,500 subscribers, but I think only like 10% of you guys get the notification when we go live, and that's just YouTube's algorithm hating people that do live streams. So we'll get that kind of figuring it out, and do an edited video so that those who only watch the edited videos, at least they know what to expect from the channel. I might even change my channel description video, the introduction to Island Metal Forge video, something to do with that. But that'll be coming. We're gonna be working on that. But yeah, so keep that bell notification selected, because I believe you're Alexis Unchained or Off the Hook. I will come up with a different way of saying it every time.
It's absolutely
Yeah, is not a scheduled situation. It's whenever you A, have time, B, feel like it.
Yeah, because if I had to sit down and say, okay, well, I'm going to do this every Thursday night, then I've got this pressure to come up with something every single
Thursday night. Yeah.
Thursday, and I'm like, man, what am I going to talk about? And also, like I explained during my show, was I don't know when I'm going to be working, when I'm not going to be working. Sometimes I'm day shift, sometimes I'm night shift, sometimes I'm both for 2 days in a row. It doesn't it doesn't fit well into my work schedule to have a regular show. I mean, even this one, as you guys have seen the last 3 weeks, I've been, cramming and jamming and setting equipment and setting out equipment during the show. And because, yeah, that's just the way it goes sometimes. I've been lucky, really lucky for the last basically 2 years that I'm almost always off on a Sunday, or I'm a
Right.
night shift. I come in and go right and do the show, and then I go to bed and, wake up like 6 hours later to go to work. But so it's just really been luck that it's worked out that way. And then just here recently, we've had a rig move every Sunday. So, can't do anything about that. Well, same thing with Alexis Unleashed. It's not hard for me to come up with something to talk about, especially if you get a couple adult beverages in me. You can't shut me up. And, it gives me an opportunity to rant about this, that, and the other, or whatever, or let you guys rant if you want to. And when I've got something to say and I've got time to say it, I'll just pop on, and it's always going to be I'm pretty sure it's always going to be like in the late evening, so probably 8 or 9 o'clock Central Time. So wherever whatever that equates to where you're at, but about the same time I went live on Thursday. Just later in the
After
evening kind of thing,
hours.
because but just well, it is also, like I said, it is unleashed, unedited, unfiltered, whatever. So the language is going to be representative of that. Not necessarily offensive by any means, but just real talk
Adult.
with real people.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see how that grows. You know me, I will try to make as many of them as I can when they pop up. Being the channel owner, I don't get a notification for videos on my own channel. There's no possible way for it.
Right.
I'll try and pop in when I can if because during those hours, like, I'm either getting ready for like watching a movie before bed, or in the case, like, y'all were going when I was like, all right, time for me to go to sleep. So, you know, um,
Right.
but
Oh
yeah.
no, I was say Jack Pines is he went and switched his stream to come after ours on Sunday morning so he could hit the metal supplier on Saturdays, and now
And then,
his metal supplier stopped being open on Saturdays.
oh
Oh
man.
man, that sucks. Um, Oh, I also want to mention Ben Toombs had mentioned earlier in the thing that his Starlink was slow as all get out, and asking me Starlink badass or ask that in the chat. Yeah, I mean, there's 5 people that live in my shack, and we can all be streaming something, and there's somebody streaming it in each room, somebody streaming something in the living room. My cousin's got 4 mining rigs going in his room, crypto mining rigs, and I can be doing a show all at the same time, and there's no lag whatsoever. I mean, there's so much bandwidth, it's crazy. But we're also in an area that's got a lot of coverage. I mean, there's like now I almost never get because when there's no satellite overhead, you get like a dead spot for like 15, 20 minutes. And when we first got the Starlink, I would get one of those dead spots maybe once or twice a day, and I don't think I've had one of those in. I had one like 3 weeks ago, and that's it's been months, and been the only one. I mean, I was just sitting here doing something, all of a sudden, just the internet went away, and I was like, what the hell?
Right.
And 20 minutes later, is it back up and running just fine? It's just they're putting up 100 satellites a week, and so I mean, eventually there won't be any of those drop offs, but for now, it's still an incomplete constellation. And so, Ben, where you're at, there may not be adequate. There may not be adequate satellite coverage, and there may be too many people, because the more people in the area that have it, that's more traffic being trying to crammed into one satellite. And I mean, I don't know how many people we've got. I know in our yard we've got two Starlink dishes, but as far as out and about in our 200-mile radius, I couldn't say. So, and then that's really a big determining factor is how many people in your area have Starlink.
Right. Well, my week, man, I'm way in the red. My week was a lot of work and a lot of like hurry up and wait kind of jobs. And then we basically cleaned up the yard, bought a power washer, power washed the side of the shop, and it's shiny white. It's crazy. And set up to do a bonfire on Friday night, and basically just kind of had fun. I am looking forward to next weekend. My little brother and his wife are going to be coming down and visiting. They'll be getting here around 4 or 5 p.m. Sunday. So just a heads up, next Sunday evening's show, is going to be hit or miss for me. Likely I won't be going live. However, the option to go live is there for Adam or Alex. I discussed this with them last week, and Adam said he might be able to get his shop up and running. So we'll get that figured out. But yeah, it's just a matter of they'll be coming in off of a 16-hour drive, and will they want to, get out the vehicle and hop in the shop and, jump right to a show, or would they want to sit down, relax, and light a fire and kind of chill? And I'm kind of leaning towards not forcing them to have that decision and just setting up, a chill night for them. However, if we get the chance to do some blacksmithing, like Monday or Tuesday before they leave, then I would likely go live so they can so they can experience that. So that's my week and stuff. Very normal stuff for Yamez. Not much, not much going up in the old brain case. But yeah, so with that, we've got an interesting topic that we've actually kind of teased quite a bit throughout these past few months. And we've been looking forward to it, and we've been researching it. We've been discussing, ways to go about it, in the background, behind the scenes for when did we start first talking about this?
It's probably this came up the day we brought up the idea for the Atlantis episode.
Right.
You guys started talking about Atlantis, and then immediately you dropped the alien bomb on Adam, and Adam's like, "Ugh, I'm gonna have to leave."
That's one reason why this episode is a Sans Adam episode. We had to schedule it for a week that he's not here because otherwise it would just be him rolling his eyes and scoffing and
To
you
be to
know
be fair, um, to be fair,
to be fair.
Adam, it's the aliens having visited Earth thing that Adam has a problem with. Not that there could be alien civilizations. It's just like when you say something like, "Oh, the pyramids were built by aliens," or aliens had something to do with Machu Picchu or something like that. I mean, that's when he's just like going, "Oh my god, really?"
Yeah. So today's
Uh,
episode is speculation of extraterrestrial metalworking. Um, it's it's purely hypothetical, purely discussing things like if there, if there is an alien civilization or alien civilizations out there, not so much like if there are, but if there were, or that there are, but if there were, how would their blacksmithing techniques, their metalworking techniques differ from ours, or how similar they would be. And through our research, we actually found, through our research in physics and science, bitches, and everything, we found actually some surprising information that would kind of hold up to a as close to an accurately scientifically accurate discussion. We're trying not to make this fantastical, and we're not talking like amoeba aliens or whatever, like we're trying to do it as straightforward as possible. Specifically so that John Brunel does not pull a muscle in his eye by rolling his eyes too much, because John Brunel be like that. Molly Molybdenum came from aliens. I mean, just look at its name. Morning, Wayne. So, yeah. So, firstly, I would like to kind of I hate to call them ground rules for conversation because that's not really not what they are. Oh no, um I closed my info. All right, let me pull up that other tab real quick. Give me a moment, please. History. There it is. Yeah, sorry. All right. Yeah, I have info tabs and everything for this. All right, so to kind of let me bring the chat to a different spot so that I can see this. This is all like on the fly, shuffling around my screens. Not just John rolling his eyes. Oh, y'all behave. Firstly, I'd like to kind of go over a couple things to create some generic ground rules and what we're talking about. The most common types of alien civilizations, depending on various factors, considering the home planet and level of technological advancement, et cetera, et cetera. The most common portrayed or discussed alien civilizations would be like an aquatic civilization, adapted to life in or around water, in or around water, and how their technological systems would be designed to function underwater. Silicon based civilizations, which, after a little bit of a scientific discussion between Alex and I, would be much different than what science fiction would say a silicon based civilization would be, but we'll briefly get into that. Machine civilization, like the Transformers, but if you think about that, that would start with somebody like us building machines that take over. So that's kind of a non-starter because we're talking about blacksmiths. How that civilization would have gotten started? Well, it would have gotten started like us. Hive mind civilization, thinking along the lines of insectoid aliens, and I don't think they would even have a need for blacksmithing. Energy based civilizations and post scarcity civilizations. Post scarcity civilizations being along the lines of y'all's favorite Star Trek, which again would, much like the Transformers style civilization, would start much like our own and then reach that civilization. So the ones we'll focus on are, like aquatic, silicon based, and energy based, I suppose, or the ones that I would focus on.
We are the Borg.
We are the Borg.
You will be assimilated.
But before I move on to another important aspect for this is to discuss. When I was thinking of a silicon-based civilization, I was thinking of more like a crystalline, being, like because silicon-based civilization, through sci-fi would be all about like semiconductors and electronics and blah 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 blah, living electronics. However, discussing with Sully, and maybe you can explain why a silicon-based civilization would be much more similar to us humans, as again, hypothetically, more based like us humans than one would think. There's a bunch of science behind this.
Yeah, that's actually a fairly simple correlation. Silicon is right below carbon on the periodic table, and elements in a row, or not in a row, in a column, can kind of take the place of each other in various molecular bonds. Sodium chloride, calcium chloride, magnesium chloride. Those are all salts that easily just one replaces the other. And the same thing goes with many other combinations of metals and non-metals. Can metals in a column can just swap out basically seamlessly. Um, the So in a carbon-based society, um, our bodies are composed of basically hydrocarbons at the molecular level. Almost every protein, enzyme, etc. Well, not even almost, but well, yeah. Okay, we'll just say almost. Almost everything's at some point in time. Every molecule's got a carbon in there somewhere, and those carbon atoms can be replaced by a silicon atom very easily. So in a planetary situation that was low on carbon, uh, the condition or the conditions are slightly different. Silicon can combine with the not with the other things to create those um, um, molecules. That, gosh darn, words are hard. So silicon can do the same thing as carbon does in an organism. So they're basically interchangeable. It's just that it's harder for silicon to make that molecular bond, and it's harder for it to keep it. So it might be a little bit I wouldn't say unstable, but shorter lived, because those bonds would break down maybe quicker. I mean, if you look at carbon bonds on Earth, I mean they basically last forever. I mean, limestone. Limestone is calcium carbonate, which is basically the bodies of dead sea animals from millions and billions of years ago. And I mean, it's limestone, so it's carbon locked up forever. And I mean, silicon maybe does the same thing. I don't really know. I didn't really look into it. I just know that the only thing, I know the where the silicon is on the deal, and then how it can replace carbon in a covalent bond. So,
Yeah. So
um, so something silicon based could be just like us. It's just, instead of using carbon, instead of having all their atoms made with a carbon bond, or all their molecules made with carbon bond, it's with silicon, and
Yeah.
it would
So
react probably in the same way we do.
so hypothetically, a silicon-based civilization would look very similar to us. So using that as a stepping stone to, or as a whatever, as a comparison to how blacksmithing in a silicon-based civilization would be to a carbon-based civilization, it would be not much different. And going on that differences, a lot of the thought processes through this was, well, what materials would they have access to? Like, what if they don't have iron? What if they don't have copper? What if they don't have aluminum? Blah, 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 blah. But iron is one of the most common elements in the universe. So it's very unlikely that iron would not be on an alien planet. Now, an alien planet capable of creating intelligent life, supporting intelligent life, in that Goldilocks sweet spot zone for supporting life. So these guys in the chat are just messing with me. But yeah, so kind of keeping that, like, we're not talking about like, an alien civilization that evolved on a gas giant and its sentient gas clouds. We're not talking about that. We're talking about essentially carbon-based, life forms, that share some parallels to us. And the exception to that would be, if we discuss any potential energy-based civilizations, which, if you think about it, yeah, I see you.
Yeah, that would be kind of irrelevant. You know what I mean? That'd be like in this day and age where it's like you're cooking dinner and you're like, oh, I need a knife, and you walk outside and you pick up a rock and you're like, hold on, let me nap one real quick, and start making yourself a knife. I mean, it's kind of like, well, that's a big waste of time. But
Yeah.
well, I mean, while you could do it, but no, I was kind of seeing, I wanted to kind of go a different direction with that. I wanted to, could a civilization develop, and it doesn't even have to be alien. What if it's our civilization? Could a civilization develop without ever developing blacksmithing? What if you don't have an opposable? What if the thought never occurs to somebody to hit a piece of metal with a hammer,
Right.
or another blunt object? Could civilization develop in an industrial manner without ever developing that technology? And I mean, so what if okay, what if the thought never occurs to them, and everything they make out of metal is cast or machined? I mean, that's entirely. I mean, it's easy to get metal hot and melt it and pour it into a shape, and then grind it down to your exact specifications. I honestly think an alien civilization could develop in that manner without ever having thought of blunt force impact on a piece of metal. And so, I mean, you've got casting, you've got machining, you've got and eventually you get into the realm of 3D printing. I mean, like,
Right.
there are rockets out there that are entirely 3D. Every single part on the rocket is 3D printed. I mean, that just boggles my mind. I mean, like, 3D printing with metal. It's weird, but so those things. I mean, and once you get to the stage of being able to build a 3D printer, I mean, it's Katie bar the door. I mean, because you can
Yeah.
literally make anything with a 3D printer if you've got the right material to do it, And
Yeah.
so I think it is possible to develop and never get anything hot and hit it with a hammer. So, and every tool is a hammer, but yeah, I mean that was my entire spiel. Was I think it could be done without it. Me and Yama has looked up totally different things, or not looked up, but thought up totally different things. And I mean, because, like, yeah, how do you research alien blacksmithing? And so yeah, I wanted and that's just the question that occurred to me, 3 months ago. It's like, could you get to where we are today, having never done that? We're not even, we're not interstellar by any means. We're not even interplanetary yet. And blacksmithing has been a very major and important part of the development of our species for thousands of years,
Yeah.
and it continues to be today. Because I mean that breeds into the areas of like, I mean there are still large things that are made, with, you know, my train derailed and I have no idea where I was going with that. And moving on, yeah, the human civilization, I think, would look vastly different if we had never discovered blacksmithing. I mean, we would possibly be still Stone Age. I mean,
Yeah.
that's because metal in on this planet, the
The uses.
yeah.
No?
Well, I mean, I was trying to say that the shaping of metal, before casting, is what happened. But yeah, then I'm thinking bronze. Bronze is probably cast and not, Copper Age, Bronze Age. Copper would have been probably, I don't know. It could have been. Maybe it wasn't cast. Maybe it was found as raw copper and then just, I don't know. I've not looked into that. So
Beaten into shape. Yeah.
right. And once you start down that path of manipulating warm metal or a hot metal that's not molten, once you start down that path, I mean, now the technology exists and it's going to exist forever, because once you do it with one metal and then you discover another metal, you're gonna be like, well, let's get this hot and see what happens.
Right.
And then this is a never ending chain of discovery, over time. As metals are developed, it's like, what can we do with this? And so I mean, in our civilization, if we had never discovered, I mean, we would have had to never discovered metals, I think. And
Right.
yeah, we'd be sitting here, hunting with rocks.
I think you never discovered a use for metals would be the better way to explain it. And as has been said in the chat several times over this past, several months, and today especially, a lot of the Australians like to pop in and mention that, until about 250 years ago, the Australian Aboriginals were still living in the Stone Age, So, we have parallels to this discussion in history, of a group of people living without, blacksmithing or without metals technology, and where they would be today. Well, we can see where they would be, and what is it? Mr. Pekka says, I think for everything the human is unable to explain, he needs a god or extraterrestrials to make it responsible for. To be clear, as per Speargrass Forge requirements for this conversation to be on this channel, we are not talking about aliens coming to Earth and making things for us. We are talking about their own civilizations, separate from ours. Not like them coming here and showing us how it's. I'll show them dumb humans how it's done. Blah blah blah. And speaking of Speargrass, Adam popped in and said chemical softening as a way to manipulate metals without fire. That would actually come into one of my potential topics. Would it be possible to manipulate metal, to forge essentially, without fire, in something like an aquatic civilization? Well, we know that you can, because induction forges are a thing. It's using electricity to manipulate the magnetic field to heat the metal, So yeah, it's entirely possible to forge without fire. chemical softening. I'm sure, if you consider that, it's very possible. And as it's because it's a fun hypothetical, metalworking underwater, for an underwater civilization, it is not impossible for an underwater civilization to come up with a form of electricity, to come up with and use electricity, using geothermal vents, to work that, to show. Trail does.
Yeah, that's exactly
Alexis,
where I was going with my phone.
Alexis is all excited because I bet aliens can forge gallium. Yep.
Hey, I'm gonna type this because Yamas was talking, but I didn't say gallium was unforgeable. I said I couldn't forge it. There's a difference.
Yeah. So, but while all right. So for the underwater forging, and for simple whatever, we'll call it that, and it's all hypothetical. A civilization that evolved, primarily underwater, if they were to evolve to a point where they had electricity, you could bet your bottom dollar that they heavily invested in researching and developing proper insulatory properties, like materials. So, assuming that they have the ability to, have electricity, you can bet that they could come up with, an induction forge designed for use underwater. Somebody had brought up a while before the show that air pockets, because you can have air pockets underwater to, help maintain, air as an insulator, to keep the steel hot, or any other possibilities of them, setting up shop essentially at or on a geothermal vent, which the waters around a geothermal vents get exceptionally hot. So I don't have an induction forge to try this, and I don't know if I would recommend anybody to try this, but it might be interesting to take an induction forge and take the leads. Now, I'm not certain if there's a voltage coming off of those induction forge attachments, but would it be possible to have that induction coil underwater, if properly insulated, and run a piece of metal underwater and see if it gets, hot? If so, then then there absolutely is the the ingredients there for underwater forging. And then you go into the iron, salt water, rust, all that oxidization, and it wouldn't be a useful avenue for them to research and go down. But you got copper, you got aluminum. They may have invented stainless steel, come up with alloys. Like they find this iron, these iron deposits underwater, but dang it, they just don't last because it's underwater. So they take it to some air pockets and geothermal vents and whatnot, and they essentially melt the stuff down, and they'd probably come up with alloys a lot quicker than us to allow this material to last longer underwater. Who knows? That's why it's hypothetical, But yeah, I would never recommend anybody playing with electricity and water. Those are dangerous combinations. And my point on the alien civilization coming up with it is, if they harness the power of electricity underwater, then they have obviously gone through the steps to kind of perfect insulating the electricity underwater. So that's the big hypothetical. I'm not solving all the answers. I'm not saying here it's possible and here's how. We're talking, hypothetical here. we're purely, speculating here. Everybody's saying, ask John Switzer to give it a try. I can't ask John Switzer to do anything.
right?
Right.
And Trail Dust, why are you typing when you're driving on a cross-country road trip? I mean, come on.
Right.
Pass the phone off to somebody else. Don't be typing and driving.
Pass the Dutchie on the left-hand side. But yeah, so it's the underwater civilization conundrum and whatnot, and the speculation on that is actually a little bit easier to wrap your head around than you would think. Sure, you can come up with 1,000 reasons why we can't do it, but a civilization that developed underwater may be able to figure it out. They would have a far deeper understanding of insulative properties of materials than we would, because they lived there, they adapted there, they grew there. So, it's that's why it's all speculative. Let me see. Robert Whitney. I had a thought. What if their environment is totally different than ours and have no need for solids like we do? Well, that kind of goes into the energy-based civilization. And if you really think about it, everything kind of is energy. It's, molecules and atoms moving around, and that's, the energy that binds it all together. So an energy-based civilization would inherently have no need to take something and shape it to make something else. They would literally reorganize the molecules to form what they need when they need it. Much to Alex's, I'm cooking, I need a knife, I'm going to go out and nap one. They would be, I'm cooking, I need a knife, here's a knife. Rearranging the molecules around them to make a knife, using it, setting it down, it becomes something else. That's an energy-based civilization in its purest hypothetical speculative form,
Yeah, I was going to say, Ben brought up a good point. It is such an insane coincidence that, oxygen and oxidizing are like so similar.
I know, it's almost like they knew. Oxygen is a poison that slowly kills us. It takes about 100 years, but yeah, it's for the underwater stuff, in addition to electricity, you could also have, like was mentioned, chemical softening. You don't know. It is believed, or at least the idea is entertained, that here on Earth, tens of thousands of years ago, there used to be a plant that existed that had, chemical properties that could soften rock. It's not fact or not proven. It's just a hypothesis. And chemically softening matter is potentially, an explanation for things. You could potentially use that in the, what's the word? In the speculation for alien, in the speculation for alien metalworking, which goes to the easiest one to do would be, which I thought would be the hardest, would be a silicon-based civilization. You've got, like we discussed with you there, Alex, the silicon-based life forms would be so similar to ours that the only difference that I could think of, based on your chemical analysis and the difference between the two elements, is they would have a shorter lifespan than us, So their culture and society may be a little bit different, a little bit faster paced than us, but the potential is there for them to evolve quickly because of that.
Well, now lifespan is kind of irrelevant in that, I think. Well, no.
If their enzymes are breaking down faster, their life force
yeah, if they can't maintain the covalent bonds as long because of silicon, and it's using silicon instead of carbon, that would be the case. But I mean, like, but I was gonna say comparing it to our lifetime is kind of unfair. As I mean, there are organisms on this planet that are millions of years old. So obviously those are like fungal colonies
Right,
that
right,
existed for hundreds of thousands of years. There's trees that are thousands of years old. I mean, all kinds of different organisms on Earth that can last for long, long, long period. I mean, like far exceeding human existence. Even turtles. Sea turtles live longer than humans. So
right, right. So yeah, fair point. Fair point. A silicon-based life form may live long enough to be comparable to a human's lifespan. Yeah, I see your point. It would be a whole different field of medicine, a whole different, field of everything, but paralleled enough to be fairly unrecognizable or unrecognizable differences, as we were discussing. So I would think that the processes would be so close, yet just a little bit different. Maybe they burn glass, to create that chemical reaction that creates fire, instead of burning carbons, you know.
fair enough.
I don't, again, that's why this is speculative. That's why this is hypothetical.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's an exercise of imagination, and,
Yes.
and imagination breeds creativity.
Yes. Are you reading the chat there? Like,
No, well, I mean, I have the chat here, but I mean, like, I didn't read that. I mean,
oh. No, 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 no. I mean, yeah. But, yeah, I did Hive Mind Civilization. Let's talk about that for a quick second, because early on when I mentioned that, I believe it was Jack Pines brought up, well, just because it's an insectoid civilization doesn't necessarily mean that they wouldn't have come up with blacksmithing or come up with metalworking. I don't know. I'm trying to exercise my brain, which, by the way, right now, going on these topics, my brain is kind of hurting. I will admit. This is stretching my. I'm trying to keep it hypothetically scientific as I can. But yeah, I mean, if you think about, take ants, for example, or bees, ants, the other, hive mind, analogs that we have here on Earth. They have the mandibles that they use basically as hands to build things. So, how would that work? Like, obviously they can manipulate the world around them to achieve a goal or to build a structure. So it may be possible for them to develop some form of metalworking. Yeah. Sorry, reading the chat. Y'all are ridiculous.
well, I mean, and another thing that I kind of had is if an alien race were to be if their machinery or whatever was biologically based.
Right.
I mean, like where I mean, if you could grow organisms to fit all of your needs, like what is it, the Wraith on Stargate? They grew hive ships. They grew them and then launched them into space, and all the everything in it was basically a living organism. So, and
Right.
that's theoretically, I mean, perhaps, I mean, it's a thing,
Yeah.
I guess.
No. If you
Biotechnology.
if you bring that down to an analog here on Earth that you already brought up, fungal. Fungal to propagate, they release spores into the air. What if a fungal style civilization grew to the point where you know what? They're tossing their spores, chemically ejecting their spores from their colony with enough force to leave the atmosphere. That's space flight for that. You know. So that's an example of a biological machine, so to speak. You know. I don't know. Whole point of this, and I didn't even touch on half the stuff that I had put together because there is so much, so many little rabbit holes you can go down with this, that it's, some of it was not worth it. Some of it was, what we discussed. Um, I feel like I've lost the chat's interest. I think we maybe broke 10 viewers on this one.
Right. He's like, yeah, and now I'm out.
Yeah, it was like, this is dumb. They're pulling a John Brunel on me. But
There you go.
yeah, it is something that, for good, for better or for worse, we wanted to discuss. We wanted to cover, you know. Um, so yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now next, our next show though, we're getting back into the meat and potatoes of the good stuff. So don't worry.
yeah. Yeah. We just got to do something.
Right.
Let's be fair. I'm the one that really wanted this show, this episode, you know.
And and honestly, I thought I felt it was worthy of contemplation, especially in the direction I went with could could it happen without um
And you brought
uh
up a point. You brought up a great point. It can happen without blacksmithing, blacksmithing as we know it, like through casting and machining,
mhm.
you know.
And in that respect, like well I mentioned earlier, is like would if we hadn't developed blacksmithing, we'd still be in the Stone Age, but that's not necessarily true because we could have developed the casting and machining and all that um, without blacksmithing, and then you get eventually to 3D printing and stuff. And I mean, like, so I guess in theory we could have advanced that way as well. I don't think it would have been as quick though. So
Yeah, right. It's my thinking on that is it would take us heating metals up to cast them and ignoring that point of curiosity of, hey, this is, before this becomes a liquid, this is, bending a lot easier. What can I do with that knowledge? It would be ignoring that and going straight to a bubbling puddle of metal, you know but it may be hey, it's easier for us to carve a mold and pour the metal in than it would be for us to take it out and hit it with rocks to achieve a shape, you know like, so it's not a far stretch to go to say that a civilization could ignore that crucial step of blacksmithing to casting, you know go, oh, that's too much effort to hit it with a hammer, I'm just going to melt it and pour it into shape. But
yeah,
so it's possible,
but
but
not probable.
not probable. Again, and I reiterate for all of you guys rolling your eyes, this is purely hypothetical speculation, just for entertainment value, and for you know us wanting to make sure we cover all bases of topics and conversations.
Well, and like I said, I mean, for me, I mean these fun shows are less about informing and more about exercising your mind. And like I said, imagination breed or uh, creativity. Yeah, that thing.
Yes.
So it makes you kind of think about, what how would somebody else do this? And that's one of my strong suits is thinking outside the box. I always look at a problem, and for some reason I always think of an alternate way to do it, or the way it should be done doesn't even occur to me. I'm like, oh, I just this is the way I would do this, and people look at me like, what? Why would you do it like that? I was like, What's, how else would you do it? And they're like, well, you're supposed to do it like this. I'm like, huh? Well, that's stupid. Or whatever. I mean, like when I was an aircraft mechanic, that was one of the things when I had my first performance review or whatever. One of the things my boss brought up is he liked the way I was an unconventional thinker. That
Right.
I looked at problems from a different angle that he would never even think of considering. And I brought to the team this. Just a different way of thinking because he's been a certified aircraft mechanic for 40 years, and I mean, like, this is just the way it's done. You can't do it any other way. And I'm like, but what if I just take this panel off and just like then I can reach it without having to hold a bucking bar with my one finger, at arm's length while I'm hitting it with the rivet gun on the outside. And I could just take this panel off, and it's like, oh, I never thought of that.
Critical
because
thinking.
because the book tells you to access that rivet from this panel, but this one over here is 2 feet closer. So it's you know one of those things where there and in civilian aircraft maintenance, there's a lot. The technical manuals are a lot less specific than they were in the military, but the manuals are. I mean, you can't really operate outside them. I mean, there's a book that tells you how to do a job for a reason.
And you're not allowed to stray.
Correct.
So with that, I'd say it's a good time for our final thoughts on the subject.
Sure.
Yeah. I'll
So,
let you go first.
yeah, my final thoughts are there are a lot of ways to skin a cat, and making things out of metal is an essential part of post-industrial civilization. There are ways to achieve that post-industrial civilization without blacksmithing. Like, as we talked about, there are many different avenues that a civilization can go down to get that end result. Although blacksmithing, or whatever you want to call it, the impact manipulation of metal is a much faster route to development and discovery and invention. And so it is my opinion that any civilization worth its weight or worth its salt would have developed blacksmithing much along the same lines that we would have. And regardless of, how they look or their environment or whatever, if you're an intelligent civilization, intelligent being the key word there, eventually you're going to figure out how to do that. Because, I mean, we figured out how to do all kinds of stuff that are irrelevant to our environment. Things we can do underwater, things we can do in space. That's not our natural environment. But anything that, like, anything we can do on Earth, we can do in space. And anything we can do on Earth, on the land, we can do underwater. And so there's ways to adapt to a set of circumstances to achieve a goal. And so, that's kind of reflecting on what if it's a marine civilization or whatever. But so I hope it kind of gets you thinking that maybe there's another way to do this, or how could I do this differently? And it's maybe more interesting or more fun. I mean, doing the same thing over and over and over again, it gets drab, it gets old hat, it's boring, and you know, oh, let me switch this up and do this a little bit different. Let me switch up the order of operation or something like that, and figure out. And it's like, yeah, no, I shouldn't have done that first. Now this is going to be way harder. Things like that. So, um, think about things, contemplate your existence and the possible existence of others, because there's no storyteller like your imagination. So I will see you guys next week, and be safe out.
Yeah. So, yeah, my usual final thoughts segment is, thank you all for joining into this discussion and putting up with us. Thank you all to the channel subscribers, the channel members, the those who send super chats, the supporters. Huge thank you to my co-host Alexis for putting up with me pushing this topic. And even though he's not here, thank you, Adam, for not saying, "Do not put this on the channel or I quit." I couldn't do this without you guys. Y'all are great. And yeah, I'm right there with you on the final thought of the topic. We're speculating, but you really blacksmithing and the process of shaping metals with blunt force trauma is the way to go. It's the way to it's proper because we know it works. So the theory or the saying of many ways to skin a cat, also applies. Just because it works for us doesn't mean it couldn't work for somebody else, or whatever the phrase is. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and end it. I will play Adam's outro because everybody loves the way Australians talk for some reason.
Unless you're in Australia, then they love the way Americans talk.
Yeah. So yeah. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for your comments and putting up with us.
Just say thank you very much for listening, guys. You can find Yames on
Any day now,
Island
Yames.
Forge on
It's
YouTube,
going.
Facebook, and Instagram. You can find Alex at Transcendental Artist Studios on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can find me, Adam, at Speargrass Forge on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. If you have any suggestions for Tool of the Week, Metal of the Week, or any other topic, you can leave them under the hashtag Metal of the Week in the YouTube community chat in Discord, or you can email us at impracticalblacksmiths@gmail.com. If you found us on Anchor, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, or Google Podcasts, we upload generally every Wednesday, or you can join us live every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's currently 12:30 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time on Monday morning. However, you should check that against your local time, and that's located at the Island Metal Forge YouTube channel. Finally, thanks for joining us, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, or give us a star rating if you found us on one of the podcasts, and we appreciate your support. Now,
Yep. So with that, thank you for that outro, Adam. And sorry, I should have let you know that I pressed play on that.
No, I was watching on my phone, and it's just like we're not talking, and I'm just like waiting. I'm like, why isn't it? The delay.
Yeah.
I forgot about it.
Yeah. So yeah, everybody keep your ears peeled for Jack Pine's blacksmithing. If he can get his situation going, he's going to be going live in about an hour. So if catch y'all there if I'm there. Thank you and have a great and safe day. Get something done. I know I'm going to try. See y'all tonight.
Bye.